Fellow Toastmasters, guests, I was recently lucky enough to receive this piece of paper from the California Franchise Tax Board. What it says is, we received information that you filed your federal return with the IRS using a California address. We checked our records and failed to locate your 2014 California personal income tax return. Why don't you help us out with that and give us some information, and maybe you can pay your taxes. Now, I added the snarky part at the end. But the bottom line is, the state of California thinks I owe them money. And it got me thinking, well, I did my taxes correctly. Of course I did. And I'm in the military, so I kind of have an out on this. Since I'm a resident of Maryland, I only have to pay Maryland state taxes, so it's an easy fix for me. But taxes are pretty complicated, and they're very complex, which I mean to be different things. And I also think our tax code is cumbersome. And so I started thinking there are better ways to do what we want to do with our taxes. I'll start with the cumbersome part. The American Taxpayers Union has estimated that $261 billion were spent just on the direct costs of preparing your taxes. So that's paying an accountant, a lawyer, or software to do your taxes. That's individuals and businesses combined. The IRS estimates that that comes out to about 6 billion hours that people spend just trying to comply with our tax code. It's complex. Politicians use the tax code and the complexities within. They design loopholes and exceptions for companies so they can funnel money where they need to funnel money for their own benefit and for the benefit of a minority group of people, not for the public at large. Now, you pay your taxes, but what if you don't? What if you pay your taxes to the best of your ability? You do your due diligence, you submit your returns, and there's an error. It happens. In fact, Americans for Fair Taxation did a study where they took a single return that had the same information on it. It had both their, mortgage stuff, deductions, income from dividends and capital gains. And they gave it to 10 different tax preparers and used different software versions. And do you know how many different versions of a return they got?
10.
They got 10 different versions. Doesn't that make you feel comfortable and complying with the tax code? And what happens to you when you make an error? Where does the burden of proof lie? It's not on the IRS. It's on you. And until you can prove to them that you're within the bounds of the law, they have the authority to seize, well, they don't seize property, but they can place liens on your assets, they can freeze bank accounts, and they can garnish your wages if they detect that you have underpaid them. So I started thinking, and I've done some research and I've read some books over my years about this because it's always just kind of rankled me that it's so confusing. There's got to be a better system. I think as Americans, we deserve a fair tax system. I think we deserve something that's simple, that we can all figure out just by sitting here together. You can figure out your required payments to the IRS, to the government. Is it under my plan, the plan that I'm going to propose to you, the IRS won't really be necessary. The plan is called the fair tax. And if you haven't heard of it before, I'll explain it to you briefly. The fair tax repeals all current taxes, payroll taxes, income taxes, estate taxes, capital gains, you name it. Replaces all of those taxes with a simple federal sales tax, the rate of which is determined to be revenue neutral compared with our current tax system. So it brings in the same amount of money to the government. Coupled with this is something that they use called a prebate. And what the prebate does is it gives everyone an amount of money that's equal to the taxes they would have spent up to the poverty level. So that if you're at the poverty level, you're not paying taxes to buy the things that you need to survive. When I heard this plan, I thought, well, this is a little too simple. And how would it really work? So the point of the system is, it's easy, right? The only forms you need to fill out are your household forms that they know where to send the check. Isn't that interesting? The government's gonna send you a check instead of the other way around. It makes your take-home check larger every month because there's no more taxes withheld. So you're taking home more money. And Americans for Fair Taxation have sponsored multiple economists, sorry about that, to determine what the price of your goods would go if you added a federal sales tax to everything. And what they found out was that, on average, about 22% of the prices of the things that you're buying already reflect the fact that there's taxes somewhere down the chain from producer to the distributor. So the prices would level out. The Beacon Hill Institute did a study of the fair tax, and they said, what will happen to our economy, to the country as a whole, if we instituted this system? And they looked 10 years down the line and said, how does this affect our GDP? GDP goes up, wages go up, job growth goes up. A lot of positive benefits for the economy as a whole. We're not talking 1%, 2%, we're talking 10%. 10% to raise GDP. This tax incentivizes savings, investments. It encourages companies to invest in their own profits, to expand. When businesses do better, they hire more people. I want you to think for a minute, close your eyes if you want, and think about April 15th. Think about never receiving a letter like this again. Think about what you would do on that day when, instead of trying to sweat over whether you actually paid your taxes correctly, you're getting a check from the government and the amount of the taxes that you would have paid on the goods up to the poverty level. And think about what you do with the extra money you'd have every month to take home to your families, to invest it in your future, and to spend it on other things. And if I've done nothing else, whether you agree with my plan or not, I hope you will at least consider that there's a better way to collect taxes than with our current system.